Hello, and thank you for joining today's webinar, where we will be discussing what is becoming an increasingly critical issue for many distributed environments, and that is how to create a simple and secure IT edge. Today, we're going to be focusing on how hyperconverged infrastructure technology, or HCI, is a critical part of the process, but all HCI is not created alike. And we have StorMagic joining us today, and they're going to be detailing how their solution uniquely addresses edge environments. But before we get to that, let's do some introductions. My name is Simon Robinson. I'm Principal Analyst at the Enterprise Strategy Group, part of Informa Tech Target. If you don't know us, we are an industry analyst, research, and advisory firm focused on the key trends impacting enterprise IT. And I'm joined today by a very special guest, Bruce from StorMagic. Hey, Bruce, great to see you. Could you take a quick minute to introduce yourself and your role at StorMagic?
Yeah, thanks, Simon. Thanks for having me. Bruce Kornfeld, Chief Product Officer at StorMagic. So I'm responsible for our product planning and our engineering teams to go execute and bring amazing products to the market.
Fantastic. Sounds like we've got the right guy. Now, as I said, we're here today to discuss the critical role that edge environments play in the broader IT landscape. But before we dig into the challenges, I'd like to spend a moment quickly defining what we actually mean by edge and why the edge is becoming so much more important. Bruce, could you quickly level set us here and talk about what we mean by the IT edge and why is this becoming so critical to so many organizations?
Yeah, Simon, I would say this. The edge has been here since the beginning of time. I think the names and the definitions may have changed over the years, but the way to think about it is the edge really can be defined as where data is being created. That's usually not in the cloud and not in a data center. It's usually out there somewhere. So, whether that's a retail store, a manufacturing plant, an oil rig that is measuring uh, data from the sea, wherever there's data being created, that's the edge. Now there's different vertical markets along the way. At StorMagic, we see a lot of activity with retail and manufacturing, as well as healthcare, where generally there's not a concept of running everything in the cloud. The cloud is very important. Data centers are very important, but there's a lot of environments where today they just need that real time performance and reliability of running your applications locally. So that's our general definition of edge computing.
Yeah, that's great. And I'd say that even though the edge may physically be not in the core, what we're seeing in our research is that the edge is actually becoming central to an organization's IT strategy and indeed their business operations overall. In fact, we did some research on this recently. 88% said that the edge plays a major role in delivering customer experience. So you think about those kind of retail environments. I think that's where this is absolutely a critical part of delivering customer value. Additionally, 82% said that edge outages would have negative revenue impact to their organization, right? So again, these are critical parts of the environment. And just on that, organizations are in continuing to invest more in their edge environments. In fact, 93% said they are investing more in the edge. And just finally, 91% said that analyzing data at the edge gives them a competitive advantage. And to me, that is a really, really fascinating part and a really good indication of just how central a role edge plays in an organization's strategy overall. So, given the importance of these environments, as I say, we did some research to dig into, hey, well, what is the customer or organizations experiencing around their edge environments? What are some of the challenges that they're uh, coming up against? And it turns out that there are actually this is a this is often a difficult part of the infrastructure to get right. Okay. Now, one of the key issues here is that the edge tends to be quite different compared to the kind of core central IT data center environment, right? And we can think about just those examples that you gave, right? Think about an oil rig. You think about point of sale environments. You think about being out drilling in the desert, something like that. In these environments, we have often have few or no dedicated IT staff. There are often space and resource constraints. There's often limited bandwidth, and sometimes we're operating in quite hostile environments. So things like dust, vibrations, temperature, things that IT hardware tends not to like. Are often a very much real and present factor. And you know, some of the specific challenges that we surfaced from some of our research that we're showing here is in terms of, well, how do these challenges manifest themselves for organizations? Well, cost. I mean, cost is always a key issue, but if you're looking to, if you have many edge environments and locations, and you need things like redundancy in the hardware, that can really add up once you multiply this across multiple tens or even hundreds of sites. Right? Organizations tell us that they struggle often with deploying and updating their applications. There are connectivity issues, they may be related, those issues. Security concerns. Now, this is a huge one because the threat environment is ever increasing and is becoming kind of a board level issue for many organizations. So here the edge is has been demonstrated, unfortunately, as being often a key attack vector for threat actors, right? So organizations are looking at how they can really secure those environments. Then, lack of skills, other IT issues that we see there as well. And one thing that I'll just tee up here, but we're going to get into more detail around, is just the changes we're seeing in the virtualization landscape that are starting to have an impact. So, Bruce, these are some of the things that we see. Are these challenges consistent with some of the things that you guys are seeing when you talk to customers and prospects?
Yeah, so for sure. So I would say this. I'll start with um, if you're a CIO, VP of IT, director of IT, whatever your title is, um, you have a very hard job because there are architectural decisions that have to be made on how to deploy applications, particularly at the edge. Yes, the data center is important, cloud is important, but you likely have small sites that need some amount of IT capability, and it's complicated. You've got a lot of choices, right? So one of the ways that's been happening over the last, I don't know, decade or so has been, let's just stick it in the cloud. It's easy. I don't have to staff up. I can expand resources easily, etc. So cloud has become like the de facto standard, if you will. But I think a lot of organization, there's a lot of growth, and I won't quote industry stats and growth numbers and CAGR and all that, but I think we all know that there's a big movement to putting more IT resources out at the edge, and there's good reason for that, which is the cloud can be slow. There are reasons for I just have to make decisions quickly. I can't wait for any type of latency. I've got to do things locally. There's reliability of cloud that sometimes clouds go down. The internet can have a 30-second interruption, it can have a 3-hour interruption. And there are some environments that can't tolerate that. So there's a lot of reasons why we're seeing a lot of customers making that decision about what do we put in the cloud, what do we run in our data center, and what do we run locally at the edge. In terms of challenges, Simon, yeah, I think you named a lot of them. We see the same things. I think one of them is scale. Typically, we have end user customers that have hundreds and thousands of sites, so the scale becomes really, really important. And around that is management and cost, because every $100 or every $1,000 that you can save in hardware and software costs multiplies significantly when you have 1,000 sites or even 100 sites. So cost, scalability, how do you manage all of these things? It's you would think it's 2025. You would think there'd be awesome tools out there to do it. It's still not easy. It's still not easy to manage 100 sites or 1,000 sites. So managing these environments, security you brought up, we definitely see that. We can talk more about how StorMagic solves that later, but we definitely get a lot of security questions, and also because it's not just bad actors, but it's also physical security. We're all used to building a data center with concrete walls on the outside and locked doors with badge access, air conditioning, all these cool controlled environments. The edge is the wild west. You can have a couple of servers sitting under a desk and at the checkout counter. So that brings up additional physical security concerns. And another one that we see as an issue is that a lot of times there's hesitancy for end users to deploy edge technologies because a lot of times the solutions that they're used to deploying in the data center are way overkill for the edge. They're too complicated. There's too much code. There's features they don't need. So there's a movement for thinking about how do we simplify the tech that we put at the edge to make it manageable. But yeah, so we definitely see the same the same challenges that you've highlighted and maybe a couple more.
Yeah, and that's great. I think oftentimes what this adds up into, right, is cost and complexity, right, and IT has always been complex, but we're finding. In fact, we did some research recently, and 6 out of 10 of respondents there said that their IT environment had become more complex over the last 2 years, right? And I think this is a really good kind of area where organizations are looking to get a lot more simplicity back into their environment. So, this brings us, I guess, to this topic of HCI, which I kind of briefly mentioned at the outset. And in general, I think we are finding that HCI solutions can be, a really good fit for edge environments. But maybe not everybody is familiar with HCI. So, Bruce, would you mind just giving a quick definition overview of what HCI is, and more importantly, what it's designed to deliver, I guess, compared to more traditional infrastructure solutions.
Yeah, I mean HCI, which is hyperconverged infrastructure, is really just think of it simply as the opposite of what you might see in a data center. Because typically in a data center, you'll see a traditional three-tier architecture where you've got lots of servers doing their job, you've got lots of network switches doing their job, and you've got some kind of external storage. So the three tiers there. Hyperconverged just brings it all together into one physical server. And it's all about virtualization. You mentioned virtualization. I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit more here in a minute, but um, being able to virtualize these functions is where the industry's been headed for quite a while. HCI isn't new. We know that it's been around for a little while, but what we're seeing is that there's a great need for it at the edge because now instead of having lots of physical boxes to install, manage, update, worry about a power cord being kicked off, etc., you can consolidate into one or two or three servers. And inside the server, you're virtualizing the compute, the memory, virtual, virtual machines to run applications, virtual networking, virtual storage. It's all built into one box, and then you decide how much redundancy do we need. Do we want two for HA? Do we need five for performance? But it's all a contained environment. So that's the definition of HCI.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. And I think, it does speak to kind of delivering some of that simplicity, which I think we've established is absolutely key, in some of many of these edge environments. So, if HCI can be a good fit for Edge, then how does an organization get started here? How do you think about modernizing your Edge infrastructure and think about how what are some of the factors in selecting the right kind of approach for their organization? My perspective here is that it's actually quite a fine balance. We absolutely need to have capability at the edge. We need to have that performance. We need to have, as you say, the security, reliability. right? But it does need to be simple, right? It can't be over engineered. It can't be too expensive, right? So I often think about this being in the sort of Goldilocks zone. It needs to be sort of just right.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
so with this in mind, just give us a sense of how StorMagic approach this, and maybe how your approach maybe differs from other some of the other solutions out there in the market today.
Yeah. So thanks, Simon. So I would say that, like I said earlier, for IT leaders out there, you definitely have a difficult job, right? You have to make decisions on how to solve the business needs. And now a lot of times you're being asked to solve the needs at your small sites, at your edge sites. And like Simon was saying, there's a lot of requirements that I'm sure you have, but I believe that one of them that's pretty consistent is that at these sites there isn't an IT team, right? It's someone's going to go install some servers, maybe a switch, maybe a router, but there's some physical installation that has to happen, but you don't need to be an experienced IT person to do that part. You plug a server or two into the power network connection, and then everything else really needs to be able to be managed remotely. So the simplicity of installation and bring up and remote management is really important. Obviously, we talked about cost. You got to, balance how much can we afford for on-site kit, hardware and software, versus the drawbacks of potentially putting all those applications in the cloud. But if you can find a way to keep your costs down, and nowadays, what I'd say is over the last, whatever it is, 5 or 10 years, Intel and AMD both have done a really good job in bringing the cost of computing down. And there's a lot of servers out there that are very powerful that you can buy for, let's just say, $5,000 US. I mean, of course, there's bigger and there's smaller, but for $5,000 US, you can get a pretty good, robust server. How many of those do you need? Do you need two? Do you need three, etc.? So there's a lot of decisions to be made, but if the cost profile can work out, I would think a lot of IT departments would start thinking about, yeah, I can afford to install some edge computing physically as long as I can manage it remotely and easily, and as long as I have the uptime that I need. So at StorMagic, we've got a product that's called SVHCI, so StorMagic HCI, and it truly is a very solid product that meets a lot of those requirements. Is that it's designed for for storing data on site and running all of your on-site applications. It's typically what we do is it can support a single node. Some customers may be okay with the risk profile that if a server fails, that they can be down for a while, but mostly what we're seeing is a two server approach. And we've designed ours specifically for this edge environment. So we're not designing for the data center, we're not designing for the cloud. If you have a need for a large scalable HCI solution with dozens or hundreds of servers and petabytes of storage, highly recommend you have a chat with VMware and Nutanix. But if you're looking at Edge, we hear from our customers that those solutions are overkill for the Edge. And that's what we've designed for. So we've designed for this environment, single server, two server, everything's included. So you've got your hypervisor, you've got virtual networking, all the management tools, you've got virtual storage. It's not a surprise that our virtual storage of choice that's inside of our HCI product happens to be our own virtual storage called SVSAN, of course. So all of that is bundled in. It's one software stack. It gets installed one time. And typically, what we're finding is customers are saying that it's about an hour to install the whole thing, from bare metal to running VMs in about an hour. And if you look at those data center solutions that I mentioned, I'm sure most of you out there will think about a time where you needed to start running vSphere or Nutanix, and there's multiple steps, multiple software packages, hardware configuration things you have to worry about. In our world, we've made it super easy, single stack, install the whole thing, and now you're up and running, ready to go. We've based ours on proven technology. So SVSAN has been in the market for a very long time, for virtual SAN storage. It's worked amazingly with VMware and Hyper-V for many, many years. We have thousands of customers using it. And we get so few Sev 1 support tickets. It's unheard of. I think it's under 1/10% of all of the support calls we get are Sev 1. We just don't have major problems at all. The software works as advertised. Customers love it. Over 50,000 sites around the world, and our HCI solution is built on top of that. So it's all based on proven technology, along with KVM, which is our hypervisor. And again, that's installed in millions of sites around the world. So KVM is a proven hypervisor. We've designed for 100% uptime. So two servers can absolutely handle any kind of outage if a server goes down. Those of you that are super technical out there may be questioning the two node, because I think we all know that to have a proper two node solution, I'm sorry, to have a proper HA solution in a cluster, you really need three. Otherwise, you can have issues with split point and whatnot. So we do have a three node architecture. It's just that third node is not on site, and it runs anywhere that you want. It's a small little piece of software. We call it a witness. I think everyone knows that term. It's a remote witness that is its job is to monitor quorum between the two physical servers. And our witness can actually manage up to 1,000 clusters. Very lightweight piece of software. And that's a lot of where StorMagic innovation comes in. If there's time later, I can talk more about that. And we're also including 24/7 support. So in our SVHCI product, we know that customers are running mission critical applications. So we're not even giving a choice of a 9 to 5 support contract. We're making sure we bundle into the subscription. We're bundling in our 24/7 platinum support. And then lastly, I'll say, one of the main reasons to do this for an end user, for a customer, is cost savings. So not only is the hardware cost a lot lower, but they're going to save a lot of money over like a VMware or a Nutanix. It's significantly less expensive from a software perspective to be able to deploy two nodes at an edge site.
Yeah, well, I mean that's been a great overview, Bruce. Thanks so much. And there's a lot to dig into there. I guess I was piqued by the kind of mention of kind of what's happening in the server virtualization space, and some of the changes we've seen. I guess with licensing and so forth. What does that? How has that impacted kind of some of the customers that you have been talking to, and how should they think about how they might evolve their environments, I guess, now that you have this SVHCI capability out there.
Yeah, I'd say I'm sure it's no surprise to most people listening here that um, the Broadcom acquisition of VMware has created significant churn in the industry and opportunity for vendors like us, right? Frankly, so we're very thankful for what Broadcom's done. Apparently, they're very smart and they have some very intelligent, forward-thinking business people and financial people, because their revenue has not slowed down and their stock price is up significantly since they announced the acquisition. So they're making some smart decisions for their big customers, right? So big customers are probably very happy with what Broadcom's done, is bundling features into big packages. Potentially by bundling, those big customers are seeing a price reduction. The issue is smaller use cases, edge of the enterprise, like the retail stores that I'm mentioning, or small businesses, medium enterprises. They're the ones that are getting hurt because they don't need all of those features, and now they're being forced into products that are overkill, and their support renewal prices are going through the roof. So there's a lot of churn in the industry, there's a lot of chaos. So conversations we're having with end users is about, how can you help us? Like, we still need to run applications at our small sites. We can't afford to use VMware anymore. So that virtualization conversation is coming up every day. That's why there's so much demand, and frankly, that's why we brought this product out. Is that there was so much demand due to what's happening in the industry. We felt the time was right to bring out a solution that offered customers choice. Back 3 years ago, there'd be no reason for us to bring out our own virtualization product. VMware and Microsoft had the market covered quite well. But now it's changing. And yeah, we're having some great conversations, and we hope that our products solve most of their problems today, and we have a roadmap to even add more features in the future.
Yeah, that's a really interesting how you guys are responding to kind of market changes to bring new innovations. I'm fascinated about how you guys deal with this kind of HA capability and having the remote witness. What does that mean in effect for customers? Is that what are kind of the benefits for them from having that type of approach?
Yeah, so yeah, like I said, we call it this the StorMagic Witness, and it is part of our secret sauce here and our differentiation. In that typically for other solutions on the market that have a that are able to do two nodes on site with a remote witness, typically what these large companies have done, large software vendors have done, is they've taken that third node of the quorum, put it off site, but it's still in the data path, typically, which means you need some pretty beefy networking to make sure that the IO can still be part of the network RAID that's going on. So typically that means at least 10 gigabit Ethernet connections all over the world, and that's usually not feasible for all of our customers. So what we've done with our witness is we've designed it such that, like I said earlier, it's a very lightweight piece of software, just to highlight the lightweightness. I don't think that's a real word, but I'll use it anyway. It can run on something as small as a Raspberry Pi. It can run on a Windows laptop. It can run as a VM in a data center somewhere, but it's a small piece of code that is just managing the heartbeat between the servers. So the way it works is normal operation. There's data being sent from server A to server B in a hyperconverged environment. So data is always being synchronized across the two servers. So there's up to date information in real time. So we're not going to acknowledge a write. I'm sorry, we're not going to allow a write until we've acknowledged the previous one has made it to the other side. So it's true 100%. The goal is 100% HA because we're keeping the storage layer absolutely up to date. So there's bidirectional. So if you're running VMs on one side and VMs on the other, they're replicating to each other. So there's always another copy of the data. If a server were to fail, the VMs restart very quickly on the surviving server. And that's something that's interesting about our our design, that those VMs restart within 30 seconds typically. Alternative solutions that customers are used to, they're kind of used to waiting a couple of minutes sometimes, 2, 3, 4 minutes for the VMs to restart after a failure. With our architecture, we're able to do it very, very fast. So there's a fast failover. But getting back to the witness, it's monitoring the heartbeat. So once the witness senses that a ping was not responded to, then we say, okay, server A is gone and server B needs to take over. And that's when the VM failover bit gets initiated. When server A comes back online, the witness then recognizes, oh, you're back online. We're going to resync the data to make sure that anything that's happened in the last 10 minutes, 10 hours, whatever it was, we resync the data and then we move the VMs back over to restart operations. But all of that is done without downtime. There's a 30-second time frame where the VM is out of commission as it moves over, which is very typical in the industry. But a customer and their applications don't see any downtime resulting from a server failure. Um, and then the only other thing is I'll mention about our witness is that we provide this software to all end users for free, or I should say it's part of the subscription. So they get this package that they can run wherever they want, or we also offer it as a service. So we call that witness as a service. You can pay, I think it's under $800 a year, something like that. And if you don't want to deal with setting up and managing a witness, you can use our witness as a service, but it's dedicated to your environment. It's set up so that it only has access to your sites. So that's how we differentiate with the HA world. And this is one of the things that we've become known for in the SV-SAN world for 2-node HA with VMware, but now it's also migrating to the SVHCI world as well.
Yeah, that's great. And presumably, if you're an organization with hundreds or even thousands of remote sites, that adds up to quite a substantial amount of savings, right? From not having to have three pieces of hardware deployed on site.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to scare people away, but I'll just say that, I mean, our largest customer is over 6,000 sites. And we're talking to end users that have over 10,000 sites. So, like, I don't want people to think, oh, this solution's not for us because it's for really, really big. We also have customers, lots of customers with a single site or 5 sites. So the nice thing is the lowest common denominator across end users that have a single site and have 10,000 sites, the requirements are the same, right? What Simon and I were talking about earlier, the requirements that you have are pretty much the same, whether you have one site or 10,000 is low cost, simplicity, lack of IT people at these sites. Um, all the same requirements are there. So don't be scared away by the fact that we can do 6,000 sites. We can also do for, very small as well.
Yeah, thanks so much for that, Bruce. Really, really, really interesting to see kind of how you guys are designing for the edge use case, regardless of how large or small an organization you may be. So we are coming up on time, but there are a couple of questions that we got from our audience, and I think these are really important things to touch on as well. First one is a question around security, and I mentioned this in my preamble, just about how important the top of mind issue this is for organizations overall. Bruce, just give us a sense of, firstly, what are the kind of security threats you see happening at the edge, and also a sense of what StorMagic is doing to address some of these.
Yeah, so I would say on the security front, um, the edge doesn't see, the edge sees the same security threats as you would see in the data center. And I think most of our end users have figured out how to make sure that all of the same access security protocols work for the edge. That's usually not a major problem. It does take some thinking, but the unique things about Edge is the physical locations. Like I started to say earlier, it's the wild wild west out there. Where are these servers? They can be anywhere. They can be on a ship. They can be at a manufacturing floor with people walking by. They can be in a retail store. So physical security becomes a much bigger deal, and data security. So what we do is we offer a very robust data encryption capability, and we make it very easy for customers to just check a box, enable encryption. Now, everything between the two servers, even when data is being written from one server to the other for synchronous mirroring, it's all encrypted. So if something bad were to happen, where data is accessed, a server is stolen, a disk drive is stolen, whatever happens, I have heard stories like this. At least the data is absolutely encrypted. We also offer our own key management solution, which is called SVKMS. But a lot of customers, just keep using their same, corporate-wide encryption key manager. As long as it's KMIP compliant, we absolutely work with any of them. And we do see a pretty high take rate of this feature of encryption. We see a lot of customers spending that little bit extra. It's not too much more. It is a chargeable feature, but we see a high take rate of encryption these days for sure.
Yeah, yeah, very interesting. Good to see that focus on security there. Now, final question we have is, this is 2025, and this is
I think I know what's coming, Simon.
it begins with A, and
Yeah,
ends in I. Now,
yeah.
now, joking aside, I guess the edge to me just seems like just a fascinating, enormous kind of opportunity in terms of the data that's being created there, right? And how potentially that data can be used to drive some kind of AI capability or function. Is Is this something that you see happening today for customers?
Yeah.
How is StorMagic kind of thinking about taking advantage of this in terms of where customers are today with their own AI strategies overall?
This conversation is coming up more and more. Um, and I think this is driving, I think AI is driving some of the growth in edge computing overall, because the days of depending on a cloud or a data center for um, analytics, learning models, I think those days are numbered in terms of edge computing. They're not going to end, but can applications and business decisions that need to be made in real time, can those really wait? I know we're talking about nanoseconds or milliseconds, but can you wait to go get answers from a cloud, send data that you're collecting locally, upload it? That could take minutes, it could take hours depending on how much data we're talking about, and then do learning models there and get answers back to the edge. It just doesn't work. So I think a lot of the innovation that's going on from an end user perspective, for them to build competitive advantage for whatever they're doing, whether it's retail or dealing with robots on a manufacturing floor or healthcare analyzing data from operating rooms, whatever the case may be, the analytics and the AI and the models are starting to be thought of as, let's do it locally. And that's a massive change. And that's bringing lots of new requirements for us as an HCI supplier out there, is how do we make sure that our software can keep up? How does the hardware keep up? So we're working with our hardware partners to make sure the servers can handle it with GPU support. It's an exciting time, and we definitely see this is the wave of the future. It's not massive right now. There's a lot of thinking and planning right now, and we're starting to see some customers do it. But I would say over the next 2 to 3 years, I see this as a really big wave of AI at the edge for sure.
Yeah, definitely one of these watch this space kind of areas, isn't it? Inference at the edge, I think,
For sure.
just a massively interesting opportunity. So let's check back in a little while and see where you guys are at.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For
We move
sure.
along. Bruce, we are at time. Thank you so much for your time. This has been a great conversation. Just in closing, what are the couple of things that you maybe like our audience to remember from our discussion today?
Yeah, I would just keep it simple. I know for a fact that many of you are in that world of, you've kind of built your operations around VMware, and that's now kind of up in the air. What do you do? Do you pay the ransom? Do you spend the extra 100%, 1,000% in terms of renewals? Some people are doing it because they don't want to go through the mess of changing. But for those of you that are ready to make a change to a new hypervisor, we're there for you. We've built this product on stable technology like SVSAN that's been there forever. KVM is a very well used hypervisor, and we just highly encourage you to contact us and have a conversation, because the technology's there, the technology works, and we really think that we can save a lot of end users a lot of money when they're thinking about virtualization at their edge sites.
Yeah, that's great. And where can folks go to learn more, Bruce?
Bruce.kornfeld.com. No, just hit our website, uh, storemagic.com. If you /SVHCI, and you'll get everything that you want to know. There's actually a nice link in there. We have a TCO calculator as well. So you can actually look at a comparison of your environment, what you need for that site, and you can compare it to VMware. So you can see actually our estimation of how much you'd save. Of course, your mileage may vary, but at least it'll give you an idea. So go take a look at storemagic.com /SVHCI, and also look for our TCO calculator. And I think you'll you'll get a wealth of information to help you make some decisions.
That's a perfect place to end. Thank you so much, Bruce, again for your time for a great discussion today.
Thanks, Simon. I appreciate it.
The only thing I guess left for me to do is to thank our audience for joining. So, thank you very much and have a great day.